Hi, welcome. I'm Kimile, and this is Heal with Kimile podcast. Today, we're going to talk about what kills a relationship. What do we do that are called deal breakers? And there's a handful. So let's get started. The first one that kills a relationship is infidelity. So if you are in a partnership and that person cheats on you, lies to you, infidelity can take a couple of different forms. But if there's definitely a betrayal, that person that's been betrayed does not feel like they can trust you anymore because they probably can't. And infidelity is a killer of a relationship. I'm going to say most of the time, probably upper 90% of the time. I've helped some couples get back on track after infidelity, but I'll tell you, usually they know each other very well. There was maybe a crisis going on when a cheat happened, or that person was out of their mind for some reason. Maybe they were partying, drinking, etc. But something else was usually going on in the background. And so the other spouse decided to stay and work through things with them. And they had huge remorse. They were willing to do anything it took to make the marriage stay together. Here's my phone. Here's my computer. Here's all my passwords. Whatever you need, whatever you want. Here's my checkbook. Like they were going to sacrifice themselves at the altar of the marriage. And that tended to work in some historical relationships that I've worked with. But infidelity is a killer of a marriage. Of course, infidelity, is going to breach that trust and really, really, really hard to get back. Not impossible, but almost impossible. But infidelity kills it. Second thing is you just can't trust your partner. So like we talked about other different reasons that are infidelity, which is spending money behind someone's back or talking behind your partner's back, gossiping, making fun of them, mocking them. You ask them to do something, they say, yes, I'll get it done, I'll do that, and they just don't do it. So you just can't trust them to keep their word or trust them to really value what you value. So that's another reason people in relationships, they don't feel like they can trust their partner. And sometimes there's got to be a sacred space. And so when I work with couples, I talk about there's a sacred space here. Whatever we share needs to stay here. Doesn't go to your girlfriends or your buddies or your in-laws, or you just don't talk to people about some sacred stuff that you're talking to each other about in a relationship sort of way. So there's got to be a sacred space that person's private things can be kept sacred and special and private. You have to be able to be your person's best friend too. And sometimes people share things they shouldn't share, and then people, it's like, oh, I didn't know you did that, or I didn't know you had this kind of health issue, or you have a problem in the bedroom, or it's really hurtful. It can be really humiliating. So I know that some people overshare with their friends, and then it kind of comes out when people have had a few drinks, they kind of get made fun of or something. So that's a trust breach. If you breach someone's trust like that, not cool. I also think talking to your kids about the parent, not a good idea. So I would say don't share personal, private matters about your partner with anybody. It's a sacred space. But that's one definite reason why marriages and big relationships, they fail, because the person cannot trust their partner. There are different core values. So, some people, how they feel about loyalty, how they feel about equity and doing, both of you pitching in, both of you cleaning the house. There's different values, core values, that if you don't have alignment in that, it's going to be hard to stay together. And that person's got more priorities to hang out with their friends than they do being with a family, or that person's too into their mother and their father and their other family and not into their marriage and their children. So, they have values, they're good people, but they just aren't aligned with your values. Number 4 would be differing desires for family plans. So if you want to have children and your partner does not want to have kids, I have a historical couple that I worked with, both sharp, very good people, but he was in the military. He didn't. He had a big career ahead of him. He didn't want children. And she was a doctor. She was a very intelligent woman, and she wanted to have children. She got pregnant, and he punished her. He didn't change one diaper. He never fed one bottle. It probably ended up hurting the children more, right? Because she had 2 children kind of close together. But he didn't want children, not for at least 5 or 10 years. And we women have a clock. There's only so many eggs. And so they stayed together, but it really was a dividing point in their marriage. That's when kind of a breach of trust happened. He probably felt like she got pregnant on purpose. She said she didn't, but the kids are like 20 now. So it was kind of a sticking point that I knew about that this late time in their relationship. And they did get divorced, by the way, but it was when the kids were kind of getting grown and then there was empty nest happening that they actually broke up. That one, it's like a breach of trust earlier on with the baby. And so that one breach of trust, I think earlier on, was what rocked the foundation of their relationship. And it festered and festered and festered. And it eventually probably did break them up. And they did love their kids. They're good parents now. But different ideas about family plans definitely can be a deal breaker. Whether it's immediate, like because they want kids and you don't, or you get pregnant and they're upset about that. I have another situation where there is a brand new baby involved. And I don't know that she was trying to get pregnant. He's an older guy. He's already had children, so they're raised. And she's a younger wife and doesn't have children. And so I think on some level she wanted to have kids, but I don't think she was secretly, planning to get pregnant. Then they were married, but she got pregnant, has a young baby, and he's pretty much letting her do all the heavy lifting as well. So I think there's a mother-in-law involved now, and so mother-in-law's moved in to take the pressure off of him, and he doesn't do anything with that baby, basically. The women do. So I disagree with that. The baby needs dad too. But that's how he's coping with being angry and resentful that she has a newborn in the house. He didn't want any more babies. People do interesting things to cope with their situations. And I'm hoping to kind of make a difference with that. But again, different family ideas. I do think also traditions and values, like if you're religious, you want your child to be baptized in a certain religion. These are the conversations to have, y'all, before you get married and lock yourselves in, because it may be a radical issue for your partner. No, I don't want them to become, baptized in that church, or they got to come to my church. And so you want to have these things ironed out and decided upon before you have a family, before you get married and have a family. Another thing that kills a marriage or a relationship is your beliefs are in conflict with each other, like political beliefs or religious beliefs. If you think you're right, and the two topics you don't want to be fighting with people you love about is religion and is politics. But if you've got some differing political views and religious views, that can sometimes break up a relationship because you just can't believe that person believes that, or you can't believe that person thinks that way, or they're, committed to that religion. And again, you should have known these things in the dating, the pre-marriage era, the dating era. But that can also break people up, is their real strong commitment to one way or the other in a religious or political arena. Another thing that breaks up people is different take on lifestyles. So some people just want to play on the weekends. Other people want to clean their house, deep clean their house every weekend. They want to have vacations every month. Some people just want to stay in a routine. So I think different lifestyles, you can usually work that out. But some people love hanging out with their friends. They love going to the bars. They love having drinks. And in the beginning, that was fine when you were dating. But then when you get married, maybe it's the other person can't stand that anymore. So things about lifestyles can actually change when you get married, and maybe you have a family and there's an involvement. But if you've got a differing lifestyle with each other, that can be a deal breaker in a relationship. If you cannot be yourself, if you feel like you can't be yourself with your partner, that they look at you or, calm down over there, or, they want to suppress you, or they want you to be self-conscious when you're around them, or you just are self-conscious when you're with them because they're possibly judging you. You just can't be you. That's a problem. You want to be able to be yourself. You should be able to be yourself with the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. So if they are critical or seem to not be able to play with you or have a good time, or if they're always playing and they're not able to be serious, there's just these different times in togetherness that you want to match the mood. You want to match each other's mood, and you want to do the same things at the same time. But if you can't be yourself and you can't express yourself authentically, that's a difficult relationship to be in. So that could be a deal breaker too. Number 8 is your partner makes you sacrifice your goals to make it work. So some people, you're not going to the gym, we're going out to eat, we're going to go to the movies. Like, they don't want them to continue to work out or take care of themselves. Some people don't want them to climb higher in their career. They will put roadblocks in relationships for that. I've had a handful of men, in my practice, that didn't want their wife to go get some sort of career after they raised the kids. They still wanted her home, and they didn't want her to work. They wanted her to be home waiting for him. But we have to, women have to evolve and change and grow too. But if you have a partner that want you to give up something for them. Like there's one that was all over cars. This is a car guy, and she didn't want a car guy. She wanted him to give up the cars and, put the money toward a new house for her. They broke up. The cars won. So, like again, this is I was a car guy when you met me. You knew who I was. You knew how I was. I kind of think that's an interesting thing, though. Is you know who I was when you met me. I do think that I'm this guy. I'm this girl. I hike. Well, does that mean you're hiking every day? Does that mean you're having car show every week? What does it mean exactly? You want to delve into exactly what that means when that person says, "You knew I was this when you met me." Maybe didn't know it was going to be that much of their life, that big a part of your life. If you have to sacrifice who you are and your goals to make your partner happy, that's a big problem. That's a breakdown. The other thing is that you don't feel respected or valued by your partner. So if your partner doesn't listen to you or is kind of doing silent treatments or stonewalling you, or you don't feel like you can share, like it's just like you're passing in the hallway and you're talking surface all the time. You're not really engaging. You're not really sharing with your partner. You don't maybe feel like you can, or you don't feel respected. Or if they mock you in public, if you feel like you're embarrassed, if you're saying something and they say, that's not how it went. If they kind of, especially embarrass you in public, that's a problem. That shows a little bit of contempt. So you don't feel like this is your person. You kind of feel like you're getting heckled or something. That's definitely somebody that's not respecting you. Some people think, I was just kidding. I was just joking. But I've got one family. It's like the whole family judges everybody. They sit around, they talk about people, and can you believe that person thinks blah, blah, blah. And it's really a mocking. They mock people. But the wife of this guy cannot be herself. She just is, she cannot talk. She cannot be herself. And she feels rejected, and she's terrified to just sit there and be laughed at and mocked at the house. And so she's really shut down. She just shuts down because these people just make fun of everybody, and they have made fun of her. So when the judgmental conversations come up, it's kind of like, what's that about? Like, why would that be okay? Why are you doing that? I'm trying to work this out with this couple, but it's definitely been years of her being just suppressed and shut down because she can't be herself. Number 10, your partner has habits that you really don't like. Maybe they're smoking dope, maybe they're drinking, maybe they play games constantly. They're with their buddies, or they're doing some sort of drugs, alcohol, going to the bars. Habits can be hard, and people, maybe they keep smoking, maybe they're harming their health and they're continuing to do bad habits. That's difficult when you're in a relationship with someone that your future is kind of dependent upon, and they're depending upon you, and they're unhealthy. They're doing unhealthy things to their body. They're not taking care of themselves. They stay up all night, drinking, and they don't go to bed. They can't wake up in the morning. These are bad habits that people tend to get themselves into. And if that's going on, then you have a partner you can't stand that's doing that. That can break up a relationship. And it does impact. I think people with bad health, if you let yourself, if it's a chronic thing, if it's self-induced, like drinking or drugs or alcohol, those are going to create some chronic health conditions over time. That's usually what happens. But if you're harming yourself like that, expecting your partner just to stay unconditionally, it's impacting them too. And so you want to look at what you're drinking or using some sort of substance over. People are in pain. They're going through something. That's usually why those things exist in their life. It's a way for them to run. They're emotional runners, and they're not dealing with something. They're escaping into the drugs and alcohol. And that, again, is not really being intimate with their partner. One more thing about the cheating thing, the first thing I talked about, people cheat because they're not getting their needs met. They say, like, I wasn't getting my needs met. And it's not just sexual needs. It's getting connection with somebody else. I think the most cheaters are not able to fully disclose or fully say their needs. They aren't able to get their needs met by their partner. And they're absent. They're just kind of unconscious to their own needs in a way. And that partner is unconscious to them. So they're not really conscious together. And people that get cheated on I'm not saying it's their fault, because it's not, but they're unconscious in their relationship. They can't imagine that person would do that. They're a little oblivious. And so they're not seeing the signs. And their partner is maybe saying, I need more of you. I need more time. I need more something. And they're just not hearing that. They're not able to really attune to that and tend to that partner's needs. So if you're really into that person, you would probably see that there's something going on. You want to know that being unconscious with your partner can create a space for them to need to fill that void with something or someone else. And if they're constantly complaining or you're fighting about it, look, that person's going to eventually do something to make themselves feel better. Another reason for breakup or deal breaker is they don't live in the same place. Long distance stuff is really hard to maintain, or you hate living where you're living. You want to move. Maybe you from another country, you want to go back home. And then, so you do have a separate living stuff, or that person won't go to your quote back home. But this is a situation where you need to eventually end up in the same place together, or it's going to be really hard to keep that long distance thing going. And then, of course, if there's abuse, if there's violence, physical, emotional, financial abuse, withholding money or racking up credit cards, stealing their identity and charging something behind their back, that's all breach. That's all breach of trust. But if there's some sort of abuse, that's not okay. And of course, that's deal breaker. Let's see here. If you can't live together because one of you is a neat neck and the other one's kind of sloppy, and you have to clean like you have OCD, but you don't, because that partner's going to be yelling if you don't pick up everything and clean everything. So it's hard to live with each other if you don't have the same kind of, habits or lifestyle. Most people can work this kind of stuff out, by the way, but some people are a little OCD and they need it to be clean, or if that person's loves loud games and loud music and their friends are over all the time and that's a habit, and then they're spending money on food and snacks and the games, but it's all for the fun, for someone else, and that other person's not getting much out of it, but they're cleaning up the mess all the time. That can definitely make you feel like you're not a priority, that lifestyle over there is the bigger priority, and that can break up a relationship. If you feel like to make that person happy, you've got to become someone you're not. That's the final thing we'll talk about is if you feel like you need to become some sort of comedian or a sex kitten to keep him entertained or happy. If you're doing this and it's really not you, but you have to keep it up, because if you don't, that person's going to look somewhere else or go somewhere else. That's going to be exhausting, and it's going to be hard to maintain that relationship. If you've got to continue to do something only they need and they want, and you only do it because it makes them happy, that's going to be a problem. I've got some people that have bad habits together. And so I had one guy say to me, look, she'll down a bottle and a half of wine if I don't drink with her. So I'm only drinking with her at dinner because if I don't, she's going to have, too much alcohol. So I drink and then we, connect on the drinking, but it really isn't good for me. I wake up with a headache. I have night sweats. I don't like to drink, but I drink honestly because she wants me to, and it makes her happy. And if I don't drink, she'll drink more. That's not sustainable. Eventually, that's going to be the demise of that relationship. Or people that want to eat. It's like people that are trying to work out and be fit, but the other person's a foodie and they're like, no, I'm starving. I've got to eat. Let's go eat, or let's do something, let's cook together. Let's have, dessert together. And that other person's trying to, be healthier and not have so much carbs or sugar. But you'll eat with them. You'll eat for them. You'll go with them so they're not eating alone. You're doing it for them. That's also going to be eventually not sustainable, because you're going to resent the crap out of your partner if you're only doing certain things to keep that other person happy. So bad habits together. And maybe you started out the marriage, hey, we both drank. We both did this. I have a client that got bladder cancer and he can't drink anymore. And she loves her wine. She loves her drinks. And so he's concerned that it's going to break him up because he can't drink. If he drinks, it could kill him. So they have to rebond in something new. And so if you're bonding over a habit and you're together out of a habit, then it's not necessarily a bad thing. But if you have to give it up to save your life, maybe you give up the marriage too. That's happened before. So they're trying to work it out. We'll see what happens. So lots of things can kill your relationship. It can kill the bond, kill the trust. I do think breach of trust and not honoring your spouse is the most critical and important thing to look at if you're in a relationship. You also want to listen to your partner, even if you've been there for a long time and you think you know exactly what they're going to think or say. You still want to learn how to attune to them and tap in and listen and be vulnerable and open-hearted. A lot of people feel like they lose that loving feeling, that song, they lost that loving feeling. But if you lose that loving feeling, that sense of romance, you can still have intimacy in other ways. And, there's lots of games out there on truth or dare things, or do this activity, or tell me this. Communication is really the glue. Staying in communication with your partner, having alone time, going on dates, taking trips together, things like that. It is something that if you keep doing that, if you stay in communication and you really do try to make your partner happy, not by sacrificing yourself and doing something you don't want to do, like eating or drinking or smoking or whatever. Love is a verb. If you do acts of kindness, if you are gentle with them, and if you listen to them, you kind of become best friends, honestly, and lovers, but you still need to continue to have sex. I think that, if you're in a marriage, sex is expected. And when one person quits wanting sex, or they can't do it for various reasons, maybe they have a health issue, cancer, bladder cancer, uterus cancer, whatever, testicular stuff, there still needs to be physical contact, physical connection. So you're physically connected, you're still pleasing each other in some way, whether it's, not sexual, maybe it is sexual, maybe your partner is still going to receive some sort of pleasure from you, even if your part doesn't work, but you're still able to make sure your partner's needs are met. That does matter. And so as long as you're kind and you're considerate of the other person, you can usually work out a lot of these issues. But if you're breaching their trust and, betraying their confidences, probably not going to work out. So if any of this stuff resonated with you, or you've got some questions, or you'd like to schedule some time with me, I am available, and you can find me at healwithkimile.com. That's HEAL with KIMILE.com. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.